Hey everybody, welcome to another quarantine YouTube edition of the Travel Squad podcast. Today we're going to be talking to you guys about how COVID has changed life for us here in San Diego. I'm Jamal.
I'm Zaina.
Brittany.
And I'm Kim. And like Jamal said, we have a weekly travel podcast called Travel Squad Podcast, where we put out travel stories, inspiration, we tell about our trips, we give you tons of travel advice. But since people aren't traveling too much right now, we are taking to YouTube to do some special edition quarantine episodes.
And since everyone knows we're currently going through the COVID-19 pandemic, today our episode is all about how COVID-19 has specifically changed San Diego. There have been so many changes that affect our everyday life, and things change so quickly within days or hours even. There's just so much change, and we just want to address them and tell you guys all about them.
Mm-hmm. At the time of this recording, we have been hunkered down in quarantine for 2 months, 7 days, 6 hours, and I have no idea how many minutes.
So you've really counted that all down then, Zaina, haven't you?
I mean, I think we went into lockdown on March 19th. And I remember that because you guys weren't in California and I was texting you constantly, oh my God, you're not going to make it home.
Yeah, well, COVID has really changed everybody's daily life, and each city is kind of going through a lot of the same things, but there's a lot of things that are unique to San Diego in terms of the fact that we have beaches and how they're regulating beaches and different things here. So a lot of the stuff, everybody's going through, but there's a lot of unique things that are specific to San Diego. But luckily for us, just recently, like here in California, we're moving into phase 3 of the reopening, which is going to include sit-down dining, barber shops, things like that. Unfortunately, as you guys maybe can see, I haven't been able to get my cut as of yet, so I'm going to be swooping in on that real quick any day now for those cuts.
And like Jamal said, we just moved into phase 3, and there's 4 phases of the California reopening plan. So like Jamal said, hair salons just recently got the approval to open, but not a lot of places have actually opened yet. So although they got the approval, some individual barbershops still need to staff their barbershops or the salons. And so even though they have the approval to open, a lot of places still aren't even open yet. And
dine-in restaurants, where there's a lot of them that have reopened and have really taken on the new procedures. There's a lot that are still doing takeout, and there's still some that are not even doing takeout.
Yeah, there's so many changes. And in stage 3, gyms are allowed to reopen, movie theaters and professional sports without live audiences, but that's later in the phase 3. So it's little things here and there that we're going to talk about. And I also heard, this is an interesting fact, specific to San Diego, that they're not allowing nail salons to open in San Diego because our first community spread case was actually traced back to a nail salon. Mm-hmm. So they're not allowing nail salons to open currently.
Oh, I didn't know that. You know, what I think is going to be, that was really interesting, actually. I really didn't know that. But
luckily, I keep my own mayonnaise to myself, so I don't really need to get in there like you ladies need the upkeep. So I'm lucky.
There you go. Think of all the employees of the employers who were either laid off, furloughed, whatever, and then they probably went out to try to find another job, or they just don't feel safe enough to come back. So I think it's going to be really interesting for the employers and all these places that are opening, because it's what kind of staff do they have now? Are they fully booked or fully staffed, or what?
And that might be why some of the places have gotten the approval to open but haven't just opened yet, because they might not have the staff to do so.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, in general, what has changed in San Diego. Right off the top of my head, in pretty much all of San Diego, you must wear a mask or facial covering when entering any store.
Except for Home Depot.
I
don't think they have a sign. No, I'm teasing about Home Depot. Definitely wear a mask at Home Depot, but I think that someone had made a comment that there was no sign at Home Depot.
Yeah. But you have to wear one, and that's a really good point. Here for us, and what we're seeing on the news, they really focus on big cities when you see it, and obviously people are. I'm interested to see really in rural America if they've made that the norm. But definitely here in San Diego, you have to have a face covering in order to go into any store or location that's open. So whether it be a grocery store or Target for that matter was deemed an essential business, or any of those other types of vendors that are open, you do need that mask. Speaking of the masks, though, interesting to see what will happen with phase 3 and the restaurants for the sit-in. Supposedly, California in general and San Diego is doing this too. I think they're having the employees obviously wear masks. You have to wear a mask as a patron as you enter until you get to your table. Then you could take it off, but if you get up to use the restroom, you have to do it. So it's going to be tricky. Everyone's going to be trying to figure that out as we go.
Yeah,
That's interesting. I'm sorry.
Just in line with the mask, the social distancing, the 6 feet. Almost everywhere you go in San Diego now, you'll see tape or stickers or just different markings that are helping people judge what is 6 feet.
Or even one ways in supermarkets. Like they have the tape telling you that you can't go this way, you can only go that way. And I never pay attention because I don't look down. And so like there's so many times I'm going down the wrong aisle, and I know people who've been called out for going on the wrong aisle and then being told on, and then people in the supermarket getting on the intercom to give a friendly reminder to go down the right way on the aisle.
So funny you say that about, the social distancing too, because a lot of stores here are regulating how many people could go in at a time. So you're having to keep a line outside, then they let you in. I have seen those markings on the floor that you're talking about, Zaina, the one ways. Specific stores are doing them, not every one of them. And I haven't called anybody out yet, but if I was to see you to do that, because I just can't stand when I'm seeing people like come the opposite way. I'm just like, they have the tape signs for it, just do it. But obviously, it's difficult to see, but I haven't been really in a store that's been so crowded that when there's traffic jams coming, each way down the aisle, that it really bothers me in terms of space, because they have actually been regulating how many people can go in.
Yeah. Another thing, it's actually a good thing. San Diego, being that it is a pretty big city, we typically have big city traffic, especially during rush hours. And that traffic has all but gone. And
Woo, woo, woo.
woo! So not that we have anywhere to go, but if we did, it would be easy to get there.
Well, I am still going to work myself up to my office. I work alone, don't have anybody in there, so I am social distancing in my office. But the location in which I live in San Diego, I live pretty far south, Brittany and I, close to the Mexican border. And the freeway that's closest to us is Interstate 805. And anybody in San Diego will tell you that freeway is one of the most notorious in terms of traffic. And so everybody coming from the south is always trying to go to the downtown or more north regional areas where they have a lot of, businesses. So traffic is always bad for my short mileage commute. And I haven't been having any of it. And as sad as it is, considering people are dying due to COVID, that's one of the blessings, if you will, is the open roads for people who are still on the road and everything. So I'm loving the no traffic. Don't have to deal with it.
I love it because all I do all day is I am a nurse for a hospice, and I visit patient to patient. So I'm constantly driving from one patient to the next until I drive home. And now there's absolutely no traffic. The roads are clear. It makes it so much easier to get from point A to point B. And I'm loving it. I feel like my patients are loving it because I don't have to call them saying, hey, I think I'm going to be late because I'm stuck in traffic, or a car crash came up, so it might be a few more minutes. And I love that there's absolutely no traffic. And like, we have had patients downtown in San Diego. Downtown San Diego is typically a really busy place where it's super hard to find parking. And now that no one's on the road, parking has been super easy to find anywhere I've gone in San Diego.
Yeah. I feel like I've noticed that traffic is starting to be a little bit more.
Yes.
A little bit.
Too.
And I don't think it's people necessarily going back to work. I think that people are still working from home, but it's more so like the fear isn't as strong anymore. There's
Yeah,
hot weather, people are out, people are going to the store, like, yeah.
Well, and also now parks and beaches have opened up in San Diego, and just a few weeks ago, parks and beaches were closed to the entire general public. Now that they've opened again and the weather's good, people are going to the beach and the parks. And so like, that's a really good topic to talk about is the beaches are now open for exercise. So you can walk and run or swim in the ocean, but one of the rules is you can't lay down or sit down on the sand.
I went to the beach the very first day that it was allowed for active use. And
that
so
doesn't surprise me.
I was like, as soon as the hour struck that you could go, I was there. And there were a lot of other people there, some wearing masks, some not. There's lifeguards going around kind of letting people know that these are the new rules. And if people do sit down, they, politely come up and tell them. I was actually there last night as well to watch the sunset. And it's the same kind of a thing. I'm starting to see more people start sitting down and laying down, but they're continuing to get those reminders. There's police cars driving up and down the beaches. Yeah.
I heard they're actually still ticketing people if they're not abiding by some of the rules.
Well, I know they were real hard on the tickets, like if you were sitting down on the beach over Memorial Day weekend, obviously, because in general, that's going to bring more crowds to the beach. But, it's really hit or miss, I guess. It depends on how the cops really want to enforce it. So, I mean, you could swim, you could walk and stroll, but like sitting is the problem, even if you are keeping the 6 feet distance. And I think it's like that because when Los Angeles County was one of the first counties to actually reopen their beaches in California, so many people went, and they didn't give a lot of space, or so authorities felt they didn't give space. So the governor stepped in and said, you guys have to like reclose those. So I think because of that, they don't want San Diego to lose its privilege. So the cops are out a little bit more enforcing, like, all right, no, like sitting on the beach, but go ahead and walk. But,
I have heard that the masks are mandatory on the beach unless you're swimming in the water. Is that true?
I haven't seen it be enforced at all. And I think it's about half and half with people. And every time I've been on the beach, people do keep their distance. Yeah.
And I know that to kind of keep the crowds down still at the parks and the beaches, a lot of the parking lots, whether it to be to the beaches or like hiking trail parking lots, are keeping them only half open.
Or closed still. There's a lot still closed.
A lot still closed. Yeah. Okay. I know that hiking trails are now open in San Diego, but they're encouraging people not to drive to the trails. Like if the trail happens to be in your backyard and you can walk there or bike there, they're encouraging you to go for that. And they're not encouraging you to wear a mask while you hike unless you're passing another person and you can't physically social distance.
Well, I want to get back to the hiking topic that we're on now, but I want to just back up a little bit to the beach, because one of the things that they're doing here in San Diego also, and it almost feels a little counterintuitive to me, is they're restricting the hours of the beach from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., which you would think most, if you're going to give it certain hours, that everyone's going to go during then and it's going to be more crowded. But the reason why I bring that up is because we didn't go right away like Kim did when the beach is open, but Brittany and I were like, all right, let's wait a couple days when we have some free time on the weekend, because again, both Brittany and I are fortunate enough to still be working. And we went and we got there a little bit after 6, and we couldn't even get on the beach. The beach was completely empty, but luckily where we went to, there is a sidewalk that, follows parallel to the beach. So we were able to stroll the beach, if you will, on the sidewalk, but it wasn't the same, especially being excited trying to go to it. So, but, sorry, I was going to say back to what Brittany was saying about hiking though, is we've done quite a little bit of hiking. There's a good hiking trail that's right by our home that we've done twice since quarantine. And some people had the masks, but some people, when they didn't have the masks, they were being courteous enough to like turn themselves away, like at narrow points, like if people were passing. So if they didn't have a mask, they would turn away. But we saw lots of people pulling them up when they would pass people if they had it.
Too late. It's already in the air, man. No,
Well,
I'm just kidding.
it's
But
open air.
Yeah, it's not inside in a building. Open air is a lot different, though.
which trail?
I forgot what it's called. What is it called, Brittany?
I want to say it's called like Horseshoe Peak in San Diego, something like that. But it's a steep, like 4.5 mile hike. It gets your heart pumping, gets your sweat on.
I'll tell you what, though.
Sounds great.
There's a little like lake or reservoir when you fly into San Diego, because there's only one flight path into San Diego. And I usually always sit on the same side of the plane, and I've seen that lake. And I'm like, where is this lake? It's so close to San Diego. I didn't even know this existed. Tell you what, I did that hike and I found where that lake was. I'm like, oh, I can't tell you how many times I looked out the plane and saw that.
It has beautiful views.
Yeah.
Are you coming to us live from the lake right now, Jamal?
I am not coming to you live from that lake. I'm coming to you vicariously from Plitvice National Park in Croatia.
Nice. And that's one of our episodes too.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I really want to go hiking. However, I've been reading of course, this is me who's saying it, but I've been reading so many articles about how coyotes have taken over our trails of San Diego.
I haven't seen one yet, and we've been hiking quite a few times. So,
You know what I did here though?
what'd you hear, Kim?
But some type of shark, I don't know if it was a great white, but some type of shark was just recently spotted off the shore in Coronado Beach.
You know, I was wondering if the more shark sightings were going to happen, because if less people are in the water, they're probably going to come closer to the shore. And so I'm wondering, by the time a lot of people get back into the water, not that there's necessarily going to be attacks, but you know, it's like with all the other wildlife that you're hearing in the national parks, they're coming closer to the roads, or people that live in the mountains, if they're not necessarily out, animals from the mountains are coming in. Could be the same thing for the sharks. So luckily, I don't swim in the water here in San Diego like you do, Kim. So I'm good.
Maybe the sharks are going back to Shark Alley in South Africa too.
Maybe
they are.
I don't think the killer whale population has changed, though.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And just like for reference, guys, we went to South Africa to do, we went to South Africa regardless, and we tried to do the great white shark cage diving, and there were none there in Shark Alley. None.
Sad.
So.
And if you want to know the story why there was none there, check out our Africa episode on the original podcast.
There you go.
But now that we're getting into phase 3, does someone want to talk about what restaurants have been like here?
Really quickly though, before we jump to restaurants, I just wanted to say that like one thing that's been really interesting just in terms of like physical activity that we were talking about is I still go outside and I walk and I run. And of course, like when I walk now, I'm not wearing a mask, but when it was like in the thick of it, I would always wear a mask when I would go out and walk. Of course, I'm not wearing a mask when I'm running. And it's interesting because like at the peak of it, or like when it started, like someone would go stay on the sidewalk and the other person would go on the street because no one wanted to like pass each other that close. Whereas then once it like really blew up in April, then like you could be 2 blocks away, try like coming towards each other, and then someone would like run across the street. Like no one wanted to pass you. No one wants to like walk by you. It's like you have a flesh-eating bacteria, you know, like people were just so scared. And then me as well, you know, like I don't want to pass you. I don't know where you've been. So now I feel like it's still kind of like that, but it's not so drastic where people are darting, like legit darting across the street like they were in April.
And San Diego's a pretty big, like jogger city, exercise, outdoor kind of a city, but there was exponentially more people out walking, jogging.
Yes, because a lot of people are working from home and they have nothing else to do but go out of their houses and get some fresh air and get some exercise.
You know, it's really, I find one of the most ironic things about the whole situation going on right now, and this is more particularly at the beginning of lockdown, is I get people would leave their homes to go to work, but truly people are in their cars, they're in a building, they're not really outside. But the moment that they said like, oh, you know, stay in your homes, it's like everybody decided that they were like a hiker or a jogger or a go to the beach type person before they really started to kind of crack down on that. I'm just like, it's crazy. Like, you would have never done this before, and now here they are just going out. But I guess, obviously everyone needs some sort of relief and fresh air, so I'm not judging. It's just, I find it kind of ironic and funny. Like, everyone who would never have done that before, like, yeah, I'm going out. So.
Have you guys seen those memes? Sorry, have you guys seen those memes where it's like something along the lines of, all you people who said that you could spend a month in a cabin isolated by yourself, you were lying.
Yeah. Yeah, because the ones before, there's like, oh, for $1 million, would you spend like so many months here with like no internet and blah, blah, blah. Well, granted, at least we would want internet now, but, and everyone would respond to them saying, yeah. It's like, that's a lie.
So let's talk about restaurants and how the restaurant industry has changed during the COVID-19 pandemic in San Diego.
So before they were able to open, some major changes happened that I thought were really cool. So curbside pickup, I think that is awesome. Like, order your food, you don't even have to get out of your car, you pull up, you get it. But even cooler than that are to-go cocktails.
What a crazy world we're living in right now, to-go cocktails.
I would go to Cafe Coyote in Old Town and pick up these tubs of pre-made margaritas and just go home and have like a fiesta with my and PB Shore Club in PV was doing their Red Bull vodka slushies to go, and like, I just think that's the coolest thing, and I think that needs to stay.
So wait, how does that work though? Because you can't drive with an open container.
It was more like a Tupperware where it had a lid, and you're technically supposed to put it in your trunk when you drive away. But like PB Shore Club, you can walk up and get one.
Mm.
So they were at PB Shore Club, they're
So good.
Las Vegas Strip. Just take your drink, walk on the street. They didn't really care. But
It's been so long since I've partied, and so just hearing you say that, Kim, I'm just like, wow, which is like magic going down your throat.
Beyond the drinks, which are actually pretty cool if drinking is your thing. One thing that I think is really cool too that they've done, since obviously people couldn't dine in, is a lot of restaurants that usually didn't offer delivery, or if they did, they had a charge, they would waive the charge, or they would start actually doing delivery. Not everybody did, but a lot of places had delivery included, which I think was really cool. I think that's something that's probably going to stay for a while, even once restaurants, or now that they are open for dining. But even though they're going to be only at like 50% or less capacity for social distancing, I think that's going to be a trend that's going to stay, which I think is really cool, is now like free delivery.
I've also seen in like some of the restaurants that are only doing to-go orders or drive-through, where they're not even physically handing you the bag themselves. They're putting it on a tray, putting the tray out the window, and you're grabbing from the top, just grabbing the bag of food instead. So it's like more touchless.
Yeah,
and same for
sitting on the table right at the front door with your name on it.
Yeah, and same for like credit card. They're not physically handling your card. They'll put the machine through the window, through the drive-through, and you'll put your card in so it can read the chip and then take it away. And so it's a lot less different people handling the same stuff.
Speaking of what you're saying about the card, just kind of real quick, I wonder if in time we're going to get to the European model, because what we do here in the States when we pay with credit card is quite unique. When we give it to them, they take it away and then bring it back. In Europe, they have little machines that they bring to the table, and you just put it in there yourself. And so they'll bring it to you, you slip it in, pull it out, and then the server handles the rest. So I wonder if in time they're going to just kind of go to that model, which I think would be really cool.
Yeah.
But Kim, I know you've done some dine and eating. Why don't you tell us about how they're doing menus now?
Yeah, so the first day that dine-in was announced, I, of course, ran to the nearest restaurant.
Boost the economy, Kim. I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah, I gotta support my local business.
Yeah.
San Diego restaurants are so amazing. You gotta keep them alive.
That and the servers and giving them tips, so it's all like big circle.
So they, of course, are not at full capacity. A lot of San Diego restaurants are bars as well, and at night they turn into to bars, nightclubs. So the bar area, a lot of people would sit and eat there. Those are all closed. They have somebody that would seat you at a table. You can't just come in and order something and stand around. You have to be at a table and a server comes to you. Servers wearing masks. You're supposed to be wearing a mask when you go in, and then once you're at your table, you can take it off. But if you're going to go to the bathroom, you need to put it back on. The menus are really cool. It's on the table. And actually a lot of restaurants too are sanitizing the table right in front of you when you sit down, or squirting you with hand sanitizer right when you walk in. But the menus are these little QR codes on the table that you take a picture on your phone, and then the menu pops up and you look at it there. This way you don't have to touch it. You don't have to get rid of it or clean it. Pretty cool, actually.
That's really cool. And talking about like things that they're getting rid of at the restaurants, I know the laminated menus are getting rid of the QR codes, but they're getting rid of like keeping salt and pepper or condiments on the table. And if like you do need them, they'll bring them to you, but between uses, they'll sanitize the outside of them, but they're not leaving a lot of things on the table that you can actually touch. I've also read that they're not like pre-setting silverware onto the
not even doing silverware. They're
just
disposable, or one of them's biodegradable.
When you order, or like when you do the code to like pull up the menu, I feel like it's only a matter of time before you don't even need a waiter. Like it's just gonna like order through the system.
I mean, a lot of chain restaurants like Olive Garden, Applebee's were already like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they had it on the screen on your table, but you don't even need a waiter.
That's a good point, Zaina. I've also heard that some restaurants that aren't using that same technology, they'll have like a really big blackboard with the menu items on it, and you're allowed to go up to the bar to order and then like come back to pick it up, but they're kind of eliminating the waiter position in some instances.
Which is kind of really sad. I hope that's something that doesn't stay. I mean, as technology advances, I mean, you're seeing it in grocery stores even before this, like the self checkout and things like that. But, you know, being a server myself, you know, especially when I was younger, that money is really good as a server. And I hope that's like money and jobs that's not permanently taken out of the economy. I'm sure they'll still be there, but I do think a lot of restaurants will transition to at least having less or none at all if they can because of this. So that's one of the unfortunate things, even though it makes the ordering process easier.
Also part of the experience when you get greeted by your waiter and they tell you about things and they're so happy and they treat you well. Like that's part of being waited on.
When they're hot and they like flirt with you and you flirt with them.
Write your number on the receipt.
It's an experience. You're paying for the experience. But you know what? Like to me, when I hear about like technology taking jobs of humans, it's all, what is it? Darwin theory, the survival of the fittest. Am I getting the right guy? Yeah. But like essentially like that's what it is, right? Like we're creating technology and it's overtaking us. And sometimes I don't even think that we notice how we're allowing technology to overtake us.
Yeah. Like even just having that personal touch does make a difference. And when you're deciding between like two entrees and you say like, hey, what would you recommend? What are the pros to this meal or the pros to that meal? Like that makes the experience a lot of the times. Like sometimes you might choose the wrong item, or it's harder to sub things or change menu items when you're on a computer. But like if you want a specific sandwich without this, but you want to add that, it can make it more difficult when like you can just tell the waiter and they can write it down real quick, you know?
Yeah.
I will say though, so the dine-in stuff is still pretty new. So every experience I've had so far, and I've had a good handful already, they are so happy, so welcoming. Like I've never seen wait staff so excited to see people back in there and just thank you for coming in and how did you hear that we're open, and yeah, so that's good.
Yeah, oh, that's great. So one thing that I heard has started to open are malls. And malls have been closed in San Diego for quite some time now. And I heard that they've gotten the approval to open, but so many places, even though the malls have gotten approval, the actual stores haven't opened yet a lot of the times. Jamal and I actually tried to go to the outlet malls near our home, and I like even read on a Twitter feed saying our mall's open, welcoming the public back, social distancing, all of this stuff. And we got to the mall and there was like 2 stores open.
Yeah, so we tried to go to the mall because, as we mentioned earlier, we've been doing quite a bit of hiking in quarantine. We're hikers in general, but we've been doing more. We needed new hiking shoes. They have some good stores at the outlet like Columbia and North Face. We're like, let's see what type of hiking shoes we could get from there. And we get there and the mall says it's open, but everything's closed, like Brittany said, except for the couple stores. And I think it goes back to what we were saying really earlier. Even though they're getting the okay, workers have been furloughed, they get the okay to open up so quickly that now they either got to rehire or reach out to staff. So I just don't think that they have their safety precautions in place or yet the employees that they need to open. So even though they're open, it's going to take a little bit of time to see everything kind of up and running, I think.
Yeah, it's really hit or miss. There's this little boutique in PV called Trendy and Tipsy, super cute clothes, and I saw on their Instagram that they were opening, and I think I showed up maybe 30 minutes after they opened.
Of course you did.
I'm just the early adopter of all.
I was going to say, does everyone see Kim's trend? She's the first one to show up when anything opens. Good. You know, I'm doing like 2-3 days after the fact. You're like right on the ball, Kim.
You know what it's like.
Well, some stores haven't opened for shopping inside, but like Bed Bath & Beyond has some locations where you can do curbside pickup and stuff like that, which is really cool. One other thing we didn't touch on in general is in San Diego, a lot of the grocery stores or stores that you can go into like Target, you're not allowed to bring your own reusable bags now. Like before, and they've actually put California was taxing or charging per plastic bag use, and they've actually put a ban that the stores can't charge for them right now because they're not allowing us to bring in our own reusable bags this time.
And for anyone coming to California, it was 15 cents for plastic and 10 cents for paper.
Yeah. I also noticed that when I was in Target earlier today for the self-checkout and checkout in general, there's like a line for the checkout, and there's someone saying, okay, you can go to this register, or if you want to go to the self-checkout, go into this line. And they're really like enforcing how people come to the checkout lines. Yeah. And I noticed that when I was doing self-checkout, between every single transaction, every single customer, they were wiping down the touch screen, the card reader, everything before they called the next person up to use the checkout.
Yeah.
So crazy.
What were you going to say though, Kim?
Oh, just in addition to cleaning carts, door handles, I see them.
Oh yeah. Well, we didn't even say that too. That's true. Like a lot of the stores, at least the grocery ones, they're sanitizing all the carts before you go in. They'll tell you this side is sanitized, this side is not, so grab from here. So a lot of stores are getting their safety precautions in place. So, you know, I'm interested to see how long this will last. I mean, will it be forever? Will it eventually, you know, pass in time and people will forget? But either way, regardless of COVID, no COVID, I like the idea of my cart handle being clean when I touch it, because imagine, just think of all before this, how many people touched it and they probably were never ever clean, you know?
That is true.
All the people who left the bathroom without washing their hands and touching their cart.
Ugh.
Rough one.
Sorry, guys.
Well, it's the truth. Now they're sanitizing it. Do you
Yeah.
have anything else that you can think of in terms of COVID changing life in San Diego?
I want to say something. Sorry. This isn't necessarily California, but I just think that this is so interesting right now that in Hawaii, you have a mandatory 2-week quarantine. And so visitors going to Hawaii are being arrested because obviously, like, who's going to go on vacation and quarantine for 2 weeks before you go out? And so people are going to Hawaii. They don't quarantine. They're posting pictures on Instagram, and locals, these are like small islands, and they're calling the police and reporting them because they could potentially be spreading COVID. And again, that's in Hawaii, but I think it's just like so interesting to kind of see how this all plays out.
There's a lot of different states that are doing a 14-day mandatory quarantine if you arrive to their state. Like Texas was doing one, Montana, Idaho. Hawaii has been really big on the enforcement, and I think it's because a lot of people do go there specifically to travel, and so they're more hard on it. Currently, California doesn't have any travel bans for anyone visiting our state to self-quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah, and I would say even though there's a lot of cons to this whole COVID thing and to the lockdown and to the way things are changing, there's a lot of pros, and we're just adjusting to our new normal. And
We are.
Diego is still as good as it was before.
Sometimes even better without the traffic.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that is all we have for you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this Travel Tuesday.
Please make sure to click the subscribe button right below and get all of our new quarantine episodes and our podcast audio episodes.
Yeah, don't forget to check out the podcast episodes that we have. We have them everywhere. You could find it, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, you name it. So definitely be sure to check out our podcast episodes as well. Get inspired to take that trip once quarantine's over.
You can even find our podcasts on our website at www.travelsquadpodcast.com. And if you found this information funny or useful, I switched that around. If you found it useful or you thought we were just plain funny, please be sure to share it with a friend. We appreciate that.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.